Okay, so namaskar to everyone and namaskar, Jai Shri Ram, and a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. So thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. Please give me there are a couple of requests that whenever I will request, I have sent my a couple of maps to info at Prajna Bharati. So I'll just be needing in between the presentation, not now, to just help in the flow. Although today I am talking about Afghan Hindus and their existential crisis, and I don't think that I'll be able to do justice with the Afghan stories unless I talk about unless I give a background picture. So how I started. So just I did my MSc in population sciences from IPS Mumbai. I just read an article about Afghan refugees, just a very short article, and that appeared in EPW. And that time, I'm giving this background for a reason, and for a reason that we all, I guess, we all the, whosoever are associated with Prajna Bharati, we share that reason. So I just read an article, and I was a student just doing demography and statistics, and I was surprised because that time I, along with many other, people who are in academia, they think that we read newspapers, we analyze, and we think that we know a couple of things. And during my population sciences years, I read about, I mean, my growing years also, I knew about Tibetan refugees. I knew about their struggle. I knew in my family, I mean, there was, stories about how the entire, Indian political establishment stood for Tibetan cause and for right reasons. And then when I was growing up, there was the time for Tamil refugees. And here I was wondering, hey, why I don't know about Afghan refugees. It was just a very short article written by Ashish Bose. And what stuck, I was just like, there was a couple of paragraphs about Afghan Sikh refugees. It didn't talk about Afghan Hindus though. Afghan Sikhs also. And I was wondering, are there Sikhs in Afghans? Are there Sikhs, are there Hindus in Afghans? And are there in such a number that they form a refugee group? And if they are at all refugee group, why didn't I hear about them? Because I considered myself to be an aware person who was well acquainted with the current affairs. And I knew that 1979 happened. The quote unquote so-called, I have objections, but they say that the academia, the dominant Western academia, say it Russian invasion of Afghanistan, but it's kind of, we can frame it differently. So Russian intervention, it was opposed by Mujahideens. So the Afghan migration started from 1979, post 1979, of all the ethnicities, irrespective of the religion. And Afghans of all these ethnicities, Afghan Muslims, which is a very heterogeneous group ethnically, so they consist of Pashtuns, Tajik, Hazaras, a few Uzbeks. So they also came. In fact, I met a couple of people, those who belong to that time, those who were living, in India since then. And I'm talking about Afghan Muslims. And I met, of course, Hindus and Sikhs. So having said that, the migration, the first migration of Afghans started right since 1979. And then it was not a continuous process. The migration happened as it was controlled by, the way civil, political disturbance, it followed the ups and downs of, Afghanistan's political, civil disturbance. So 1979, that migration that happened, that started in 1979, it just went on until 84, 85, 86. And those who migrated, who could migrate that time, they largely belong to the comparatively richer class. And so majority of the population who came to India, they are now resettled, resettle is a term, like we can say that they have been naturalized. Naturalized means, in a very like layman term, we can say that they have got citizenship, and the majority of the population, it is well off, and they are well settled, and they are like, I'll be just showing the map of Delhi. So there's a greater Kailash, which is very which is considered to be a posh area in Delhi. So they are like mostly settled in that area. And then as the ups and downs keep happening in Afghanistan, so did the migration. So the next wave followed in 1992, and it never stopped. And I was wondering that why I don't have any sort of a concrete research paper, a full-fledged informative article about the Afghans. So I think the forceful and deliberate denial to these marginalized voices was first emotional reason to take up those issues. And I did my PhD from IIT Bombay. I'll not take the name, but initially there was question, why do you want to work on Afghan Hindus and Sikhs? After all, they're Hindus and Sikhs, so why there should be any problem? So, and I think me and all of us, I think we have to counter that narrative academically. So that was the second objective. The first objective was to know the answer the question of the silence that existed both in the newspapers and academia. And the second was to really explore how they become refugees. And through onset of that journey, I came to know about the rich and a vibrant and a very rich history of Afghan Hindus, and a vibrant community, how vibrant community they are. So with that, very little, I'm sorry, it's not a little background, it's a bit of elongated background. I just request if we can see the map of Afghanistan. Yeah, so in between that period, then we'll see the map. It's there in the presentation. So when I entered, I think I would like my viewers to just note two very important institutional. I don't want to go into detail because of the couple of issues and political and sociological debates about that. So I'll really not go into detail because I really want to talk about the very objective, factual, realities and connect it with the CA. But we have to keep in mind two very concrete things. A, India as such until now, and for good reasons, Indian state does not have a refugee policy because we have historical and cultural reasons not to have them. Despite that, India has been, we all know that India has been, receiving and supporting and giving asylum to a lot of, foreigners from all over the country. And since the 1947, although we call them refugees, we have been receiving population from in our eastern border and western border. So we have received after 1947 happened. So can we just go to the second slide? Yes, thank you. Yeah, the third one is better. So I'll just take one more minute to elaborate. So India doesn't have a refugee policy, although we have received Tibetan refugees, and we went to the extent that the Indian state did establish Tibetan government in exile in Dharamshala, which is just a 4 hours drive from my place in Mandi. So, and then we heard a lot about refugees, which was at a time such a complex issue that I guess it was such a politically complex issue that India lost its the then ex-prime minister. So that kind of political voice to support Afghan was never ever in India. why I'm saying that, because of my own, because of my commitment to maintain secrecy and maintain confidentiality to my Afghan respondent, I would like to just, convey that I have, I'm basically an ethnographer. So my findings are based on inferences that I draw from the oral narratives as well as discourse analysis. I am based on government, I do analysis of the government policy, and then I try to, infer what is the story. So many Afghan, quote unquote, I hate that term refugee, but the Afghan Sikhs and Hindus said that although during the Narasimha Rao government period, it was easier to kind of get access to India because the visa norms were really, they were made flexible in terms of that the one entire family and entire joint family of 25 to 30%, they were permitted entry just on one passport. So, and that time, I guess Pakistan also supported in terms of giving passage through the, that road route through that POK. And later it was closed. So then only people who could afford journey through flights, they could come to India. But more or less, the visa norms were flexible. Apart from that, apart from just providing flexible visa, Indian state did not do anything, and mind you, anything for that really vulnerable community. Now this is one background. So India does not have a refugee policy. We act on case basis. That's we call case basis. So we have provided refugee status to Tibetans. We have provided refugee status to Tamil refugees. And we are having, by the way, refugees from all, in the UNS, under the UNHCR category, we have refugees from Iraq, from Iran, Palestine. They're not in like huge chunk, they're not huge chunk of population, they're still, and of course we have refugees from, UNHCR refugees from Myanmar. So the second background, which is very important to understand in terms of, understand the struggle of Afghan refugees, Afghan Hindus and Afghan Sikhs, is to understand that since India does not have a policy, so all the asylum seekers, as well as all the asylum seekers, let me tell, so all the people who really seek asylum, they are given asylum and then the refugee status based on their perceived vulnerability by the UNHCR, which is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and it has office in Delhi as well as in, I guess, Chennai, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So the UNHCR, so Afghan refugees come under the category of UNHCR refugees. So how does the UNHCR work? It just, what to say, there's a refugee status determination process. So a person will be given refugee status. So what does the status will do? It will determine his or her access to certain basic facilities, just 3,000 to 4,000 rupees per month, and that has to be extended per year, and that's a very complex process. So why I'm emphasizing that Afghans, all the Afghans were categorized as UNHCR refugees. They were not refugees under the Indian government policy. Now, the most important thing, when I started my doing my research in IIT Bombay, the question that was slightly, initially raised by one of the panel members, I'll not take the name, that why would Hindus and Sikhs be having any problem? After all, they are Hindus and Sikhs. I'd really like to share this with all my viewers, that UNHCR has a very, very unique, policy for the Afghan refugees. So what they have done, they have received the population in India, which they do in wherever they are placed, based on the based on the countries who are signatories to the United Nations Convention on 1951 Convention on Refugees. India is not a signatory, but still India recognizes UNHCR, and India is a signatory of so many international conventions and treaties, which under which India is obliged to, not to throw any person who is really having a genuine fear of, his or her life. So UNHCR works in India, and UNHCR recognized Afghan refugees as UNHCR mandate refugees. But what the UNHCR does? So at one place, Indian government is not recognizing Afghans as refugees under Indian state policy. In UNHCR, what does it do? UNHCR categorizes the Muslim population and Hindu Sikh population. So what it does, the Muslim population, they say they are ethnic Afghans. Mind you, Muslim Afghans are ethnic Afghans for UNHCR, and the rest of the population, the Afghan Hindus as well as the Afghan Sikhs, are Hindu Sikh Afghans. So how does this, why does it matter at all? This is very technical and technically very important, point to understand for all of us. I'll not go into, theoretical debate and all. So I'll just, briefly share with you what does it do. So I have, called it the politics of, differential categorization and imposition of categories. So I'll just leave the theoretical aspect and just talk you rough facts. That what does this differential treatment, formation of two categories of refugees mean? So I have already told you that UNHCR, how does it work? So UNHCR, whomsoever is recognized, whichever group is recognized as refugees, which has its own complex process of status determination, UNHCR gives them support, very basic support. It provides them training, some basic English, language training, and then skill development programs are organized for them. Basic minimum support based on the expenditure expectation in the respective host countries. So they are giving a very minimal survival support. So which was when I was conducting fieldwork. By the way, I stayed in Delhi for almost 18 months in phases, not continuous 18 months, but I came, in different, I used to come from Mumbai to Delhi. So in different time periods, so that I can, have a sense of their community life and all the, different months. And, I'll just explain later about my methodology. So coming back to the, differentiation of two categories, the ethnic Afghans and Hindu Sikh Afghans, two categories. So those who are recognized as ethnic Afghans, they are supported for third-party settlement. Third-party settlement is that those who are not aware of this term, I think most of the people might be aware, but those who are not, for them, I'll just explain it in a very simple manner. So what is third-party settlement? So now how does the UNHCR work? It's like there are hundreds of countries, those who are signatory to the United Nations Convention, the 1951 Convention for the Protection of Refugees and Asylum Seekers. So based on that, United Nations sends the refugees in a third party. For example, an Afghan or maybe a Rohingya or maybe a refugee from Iraq, they are, they have got asylum in India or in Pakistan or in Iran. Okay. And then they stay there for 5 or 6 or 10 years or 15 years, based on how much time the UN agency takes to, to process their case. And then the UNHCR sends them for permanent refugee status in a third country. That is called third party settlement. Why it is important? Because a third party settlement somehow ensures a permanent residency of that particular refugee, permanent refugee status, and then ultimately translate in due course of time in citizenship, in getting citizenship. So in fact, what has unfortunately happened, that for a lot of refugees, because of the turbulence, because of the civic strife in Afghanistan, and as well as in many other countries, wherever there is violence and ethnic events of ethnic cleansing. So people really cannot stay there normally, cannot live their life, cannot live their life normally. So they basically migrate. They do migrate. That's what the forced migration. And then they are just dying to get, third-party settlement. So it's not easy to get third-party settlement. So what has happened, that the moment I started interrogating more and more, I find that the Afghan Sikhs and Hindu population, they feel cheated. And this is, I'm talking about, the pre-CAA scenario. Now imagine a population which is, staying in India since 1979, or just, post 1979, until now, they are not given refugee status by the Indian state. And the UNHCR as well. UNHCR say that, I have talked to the head of the UNHCR in Delhi a couple of times, and they just come with the assumption that they are, business, and they're successful business community, and they're Sikhs and they're Hindus. So that's why we don't give them support for third-party asylum. So my, of course, I tend to feel them as my community. So what they feel. But the Afghans feel that, I'll just phrase this in Hindi. So, हम इधर आए थे अपना देश समझकर, हमको यहाँ से भी कोई support नहीं मिला, और हमें ये बाहर भी नहीं भेजते UN वाले. So we considered India to be our natural homeland and motherland, because we thought that we were always, we heard stories from our forefathers. Our forefathers were coming here to Haridwar. India was our religious. So many accounts are just so many there. I have so many narratives, filled with, how they considered India to be this religious homeland and, dharmic homeland, and homeland for, they had a connection. Although they still proudly feel that they are Afghans, but they still felt connection, and they thought that, going to India would be a natural abode for them. But they were denied a respectful, a dignified, and a genuine recognition of their plight and any pragmatic solution. And then they felt that they are being discriminated against. They didn't have any hard feelings for their Muslim fellow, but they just said that, for everyone, it was for all the Afghan, all the UNHCR refugees, be it from Myanmar, African refugees, so many countries from Africa were there, and they are still here in India. And Iraq, Iran, Palestine. So they all were considered eligible for third-party settlement, but Afghans were not considered eligible for third-party settlement. So only those Afghans, and by the way, Afghans are spread more than India. The Afghan, Sikh, and Hindu population, they're spread across all the continents, I would say, all the 5 continents. So they are in Russia, they are in Canada, they are in the US, they are in Australia, they are in France, they are in Germany, they are in all the European countries, Western as well as Eastern. But of course, their number is more in Western European countries. There are so many Afghans in Germany, Netherlands. Of course, US, I have been there, so I know. So that's another background. Yeah, I'm so sorry, because I'm before coming to just Hindu and Sikh thing, I needed to talk about this, institutional thing, because unless and until we understand this background, we will not be able to understand the actual plight of our Afghan brothers and sisters, and then we will not be able to understand and counter and address the problem of, deniability of voices, the deniability and, suppressed, marginalized, and suppression and marginalization of voices, both by institutions as well as our political circle. So, yeah, so here I'll just, need a couple of more minutes to come exclusively come to Afghan Hindus, but I have to talk about Afghan Sikhs because of the specific context of Afghan Hindus and Sikhs. Say, when I started my fieldwork, I didn't know anyone. So it was just an exploratory, because I was exploring this for the first time. So in that, I have to do everything from scratch, even how to get access to Afghans. So I was, after 3 and 4 months of my field stay and meeting different people and finding out connections, I met with Khalsa Diwan Welfare Society, and it's very important to understand. Although the name might appear, Khalsa Diwan, Khalsa like Khalsa Panth, we associated, and of course it is associated with the great Sikh Dharma. But Khalsa Diwan Welfare Society is the very prominent and very important and one of the key community and cultural organization established by and established for both the Afghan, Sikhs and Hindu community. So they don't discriminate. So that's it's very important to understand why I really want to talk about I think 3-4 minutes about Afghan Sikhs also. Because the way I have understood until the fieldwork, I have done my fieldwork within Delhi. It was spanned until like 2 and 3 years of my time. Like I went there in 2009 and 10 and 11, and then again in 13 and 14, just, for 2 months and 15 months, I just divided my time like that. So there were 2 organizations. The key important organization is Khalsa Diwan Welfare Society. It's very, very significant in terms of, there was Akali Kaur Singh Gaur, Akali Kaur Singh. So he was a Sikh, a Khalsa Sikh. He, during the pre-independent India, he went to Afghanistan from India. And Akali Kaur Singh ji, he has tried to establish Khalsa Diwan society there in Afghanistan, in Jalalabad in 1929. And I think that event was very, very significant in terms of, converting a lot of people, especially amongst the, of course, Hindu population, to domain Sikhism. So the onset of actually after the Guru Nanak Dev's Yatra, the second major important event in the expansion of Sikhism was the establishment of this Khalsa Diwan group in Jalalabad. Why it was important? Because it was, although this was Khalsa Diwan, but this was the only, the only important organization that become very, very important for the cultural and religious life of both the Afghan Sikhs and Hindus. So that organization, apart from helping Sikhs and Hindu population, that organization was very important. So they organized a 7-day festival, which was very important in the cultural and political life of Afghanistan. So they're like people used to come from all the corners of Afghanistan in Jalalabad, Sultanpur, and they held 7 days festival. So incidentally, coming back to the Afghans' journey in India, what they say, we didn't have anybody. No organization, especially no Hindu organization, come forward to support us. No political leader, but we just, we gathered. We just, when we just took some time of 6 months and 1 year to be on our feet. We did everything. Even like many business persons, I'm not saying all, but there were so many business, rich person belonging to rich families and, having good business background back in Afghanistan. They opened ready, carts. They sold foods and they worked in some as laborers and in someone's shop. So what Khalsa Diwan does, that it became very prominent. It was established, I guess, in 2001. Yeah, it became very prominent in providing a platform that can cater to the very basic need of all the Afghan Sikhs and Hindu community. So what they do, that they have a very organized setup. So those who are, newly coming Afghan migrants, so they, help them in providing a home. Just for, someone will provide home, and okay, you don't give money, and you just be here. You seek some, some opportunity, some job opportunity, and they also help the children for the education. And they have, like, beautifully, their organization is just amazing. The way they perform, the way they work, because I have, like, observed them for a good amount of 1 year. So I have been just, going there and observing. That's it. So what we call, participant observations. So I was staying in Tilak Nagar. So I was just saying, so how beautifully they have organized and self promoted their resettlement in India. So without anyone's support. So the Khalsa Diwan worked for resettlement from scratch to wherever they are. And mind you, Afghan Hindu and Sikh refugees, not all, but the community that has started coming from 1979. I think now I'll just request someone from the team to go back to go to the slide while I talk. So the Afghan Sikh and Hindu community, yes. This I'll just talk later. Slide number 2, which talks about their settlement in Delhi. The next one, yes, no, the next. The next. Okay. Okay, the previous slide. Okay, yeah. So if you can see, this is just a map of Delhi showing localities inhabited by Afghans. So basically, I have already shared that the earlier chunk of the population, those who were slightly of good background, and those who were, like, traders and politicians. So they are largely, not all, but largely they are settled in southern Delhi, Greater Kailash and Hajj. But the population that started coming in 1992, so they are mostly, I'll say 90% of them are in Tilak Nagar. Can you see, a slightly western part of Delhi? So Tilak Nagar, Vikaspuri. Yes. So the dot with the pink line, the pink dot, which is Vikaspuri and Tilak Nagar, and then there is a region which crosses the boundary of Delhi, and it is Delhi. There's a Faridabad, which is still, I guess, under Delhi NCR. It comes under Delhi NCR, the National Capital Region. So most of the population that come after 1992, including post 2001, they are settled in Tilak Nagar, Vikaspuri. They're very nearby. So mostly they form, largely, western, towards the western part of the Delhi, and Faridabad. Here is our Asa Mai temple. So I'll just briefly talk about the Tilak Nagar. So what Tilak Nagar and Vikaspuri, most of the field work that I conducted, I stayed in Tilak Nagar with them in the same locality where Khalsa Diwan is operating as a key organization for the resettlement of refugees, of Afghan Hindu and Sikhs. So, yeah, I was staying in this area. So can I just request to go back to previous slide that talks about regions in Afghanistan? Yeah, that's fine. So I have talked about the political context of Afghan migration, political context in terms of India not, aggressively, not aggressively, even minimally supporting Afghans as a responsible state. and very, very casually treating the Afghan population. And then I have talked about the United Nations High Commissioner Refugees, which is the international UN body to cater to the need of refugees and asylees. I talked about the differential treatment. And then I have talked about how community and cultural organization, how important they become for a self-motivated effort of resettlement of Afghans. And it's very fascinating because Afghans, when you'll go to Delhi, now almost all the, there are some portion of very prominent economic hubs in Delhi. So there's Ghaffar Market, which is a very famous Ghaffar Market in Western Delhi. So they have almost occupied Ghaffar Market. Initially, they started to work as a helper in Indian shop, and now they have become the master of those shop. And likewise, Afghan Sikhs and Hindus, they have shops. In fact, they have a hold over the Krishna Market in Chandni Chowk. The Far Market, Krishna Market, as well as Lajpat Nagar is very, very important, and is, I will say, an economic. They work as economic. They have emerged as economic markers, important markers in the economic landscape of Afghans. Taking my story further, I would like all of us to just, pay. It's a very interesting thing about Afghan Hindus as well Sikhs, that how do they identify themselves? They identify themselves both as Afghans, Hindus, vis-a-vis Sikh, but they have a very strong identification with their respective regional identities. So initially I was really confused what does that mean? Because whenever I talk to any, Hindu or a Sikh Afghans, their identity in terms of, they'll say, I'm a Hosti, or I'm a Ghazniji, or I'm a Charakari, or I'm a Laghmani. So as I move further into my, because I couldn't find the explanation of these terms in any other, kind of historical documents about Afghans, because most of the, anthropological studies about the Afghans are largely on Muslim Afghans. Be it, there are 10, I guess, not less than hundreds, in terms of, I'm talking both in terms of books and available articles, but there's no much mention about the Afghan Hindus and Sikhs population. So there's just, I guess, a couple of, one PhD by Chitra Kur in Germany about Afghan Hindu population. Then there was an attempt by, I guess, Professor Oberoi to understand about the to understand the history of Afghan Sikhs, but it does not tell anything about the ethnic diversity of Afghan Sikhs and Hindus. So I think this is just purely my inferential conclusion, the inference about Afghan Hindus and Sikhs ethnicity. Why I'm making, so I'm claiming that there are different biradaris, and based on the regions of Afghanistan and special, dialect that they speak. And they are very strong. Afghan Hindus and Sikhs have a very strong sense of their regional identity also. So, the way we identify amongst ourselves, I guess, as, we are Bengali and we are Tamil and Telugu. So I have, discussed this with them, and they are also of the same region. That if they said that they are Ghazniji, so this means that they belong to the Ghazni region. If they say that they are Hosti, they belong to Hosti region. Can you see this? I have highlighted the map, so you can see the host, Ghazni. You can see Kabul, so they will say we are Kabulis, and they'll say they are Kandharis, and they'll say Charakaris, so you can say somewhere Charakar also. So things like that. So there are I'll again say the name of those identities. So amongst the Afghan Sikhs and Hindus, there are people who claim that they are Kabuli Hindu, they are Kabuli, they are Charakari, they are Laghmani, they are Ghazniji, they are Hosti. So initially, I think back, not I think, but initially back in Afghanistan, these were kind of, endogamous groups. It's not that they differed very much in terms of their religious practices, because of course they were either practicing Hinduism or Sikhism, but they tend to marry, within like their hosti group. A hosti would marry within a hosti, but now that is kind of, is becoming slightly flexible when they have, come to Delhi. So that's very important. That also become important in terms of, in Tilak Nagar, from, I guess, since 2001 until 2015-16, because I have not been to Delhi, especially in that area, so I might be wrong, but until 15-16, there were 7 Gurudwaras founded by respective biradris. So they were hosti Gurudwara. There was Gurudwara by hostis and, Charakaris and Lagamanis. It's not that like, no one else would go there. In fact, in Afghan Gurudwaras, every Hindu will go, things like that. So this is about their regional identity. So I again, want to, request all of you to just, again come back to the point from where I started. And I started that I want to look deeper into I want to talk deeper about the community and cultural life. So why I talked about community life? Because these biradris were very important. Khalsa Diwan is very important in terms of, making a very significant, the only significant effort. Of course, there's another organization which is Afghan Hindu Sikh Welfare Organization, that is amongst the community that is not considered to have made such an important mark, although they have also done their bit. So Khalsa Diwan is very important. Then Asa Mai temple becomes important. And if I just can request some of the team member to go back to the region of Delhi, so I can show you regions, populations. So if you can see the pink dot, Faridabad, there is Asa Mai temple. So why this temple is very important? I'm sorry, I think I have it was in my previous camera. It's very, when I clicked the picture of Asa Mai from outside, because earlier they were also skeptical about, okay, don't click the picture, and I have to, be honest to the promise that I make with my respondents. So, because of their context, they were not always very, very, okay with clicking pictures. So I had very few pictures, although from Delhi, although I had some, but that somehow with this, I don't know, there's some technical issues, so I right now cannot share, but I'll just try my best to share the picture of Asa Mai temple in New York, Hicksville, but later. So why that Asa Mai temple is very important? So I just like to talk about the legend that is associated. That's what they say, that whenever I talked to any Afghan Hindu, 2 places were very important. Of course, they were going to Khalsa Diwan, and Afghan Sikhs also went to Asa Mai temple. And everybody in the Afghan community, Afghan Hindu and Sikh community, has a deep respect for Asa Mai. So I think even if you have a talk with 1 or 2 hours, you can hardly miss reference of Asa Mai. Such was the importance, and that made me wonder why. So what is that? Even the carriers of Afghan Hindu, there's a name of Asa Mai, and whenever they will begin any sacred task, or they will go to work, they will take the name with deep faith of Asa Mai. And the Afghan Hindus trust is that there's a sacred flame in the hillocks of Kabul, in the cave, that is burning since 5,000 years, and no one would have stopped that. So wherever Afghans go, because Afghans, as I have said, that you name the continent and there are Afghans of all the ethnicities. There are Muslim Afghans and Afghan Sikhs and Hindus. But wherever Afghan Hindus have gone, they have established Asa Mai. And that itself tells why Asa Mai is very important. In fact, I was just listening to one of the narratives and listening to the interview of the head of Asa Mai Trust, in fact, Afghan Hindu and Sikh, Hindu Association in New York, Hicksville. And there was it was kind of a focus group discussion, which community members from both the communities. I told that, it's not like Afghan Hindus and Sikhs, they don't consider that they are very, very, different. When they all, if there's any marriage in Afghan Hindus family, they will go to Gurudwara. This is like if, Afghan Sikhs also, they, that's what I have seen. They go to Asa Mai temple. So what they said that it is our trust that because of Asa Mai's, it's a faith. It's our faith and our trust. We trust that it's because of the Asa Mai, so much has happened, but our temples, they have deteriorated because of, we couldn't keep them because we were not there. But because of her blessings, wherever we have gone, we have been successful in kind of, starting from scratch and establishing ourselves as proud communities. So it is just the blessings of Asa Mai. I can, if I can show the picture, although I don't have, there's an Asa Mai temple in Sanjay Colony in Faridabad. So I have been there almost 12-15 times because what Asa Mai Trust does, that likewise, when it was founded, the members of the community, they collect some very humble, donation based on their respective economic, status of community members. And every month, I think it used to happen on Wednesday when I was conducting field work. So there will be Jatha. So Hindus from, and Faridabad is quite a distance from by bus. And that time there was no metro, at least in that route. So I'm saying that, and it was amazing to explore this and to be with them in their journey. That every Wednesday, I guess it was third Wednesday of every month, all the community members, they would go to Asa Mai temple by bus. They will have kirtans and bhajans, both in Hindi. Hindi will be sung by, of course, the locally recruited priest, and Pashto. So they sing their Ramayan in Pashto. And there's the Pir Ratan, which I'll talk later. And there will be a good amount of people, so 500 to 600 people. And then they will disseminate whatever information regarding the citizenship, resettlement, or who is the newly joined members. They have to collect money for their to restart their life. So these are the kind of works that Asa Mai Trust also used to do. So, and the diasporic connection of this Asa Mai Mandir is very important because there is Asa Mai temple. I think that file could not be uploaded. I don't know why. I have made a list. Can you just, otherwise I will show this on my thesis chapter. So can you go, yeah. I have, yeah. I'll just request if appendix 6 is visible. If not, then I'll just show it on my camera. I hope this is, I hope it's like, is it visible? I have to like on my camera. Is this table visible?
Yeah, kind of, but it's a little difficult. But I think you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. So I want to say that there is a list of temples and gurudwaras that are established all across all across the world. So there's Asa Mai temple in Flushing, New York, and I have been to Asa Mai temple in. I've done my field work in Asa Mai temple, Asa Mai Hindu Association and temple in New York, Hicksville, and there's a Hindu community center. Of course, in Hicksville, where I was there, and there's Afghan Hindu temple in Hamburg, Germany, and Afghan temple in Essen, Germany, and Hariom Mandir in Cologne. All of them, they are established by Afghan Hindu as well as Afghan Sikh community. And there's so many gurudwaras. So, apart from the temple, the three crucial temple on the name of Asa Mai are Asa Mai temple in Hicksville, New York, and then this Asa Mai Mandir in Frankfurt, Germany, and Asa Mai in Netherlands. So that's in Stichting Asa Mai in Amsterdam, and in Frankfurt, it is established in January 20th, 2002. I'd like to just come back to read just a brief excerpt from one of the key founders of Asa Mai temple in Hicksville. So the gist of that excerpt is that why did they? That feeling and the unbreakable faith in Asa Mai is universal for Afghan Hindus as well as for Afghan Sikhs. So what they were saying that apart from the local legal requirements of having a cultural and religious organization in respective countries. In US, there are some certain terms and conditions that they have to follow. The only thing that the intention is to transmit the Afghan culture, to transmit the Hindu culture amongst, to their generations. So that's very important.
I'll just share the Asa Mai picture from Kohe Asa Mai in Kabul.
Yes.
I've just picked it up from the net.
Thank you, Girdalji. Thank you. Okay.
So this is the Asa Mai Jot. They call it Jot.
Yes.
This is from the Kohe Asa Mai.
Kohe Asa Mai, that's what.
And so this is the mountain on which this is supposed to be there. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
And if you can just, in continuation, if you can just show the picture from Asa Mai temple in Hicksville.
Yeah, that I think Dheeraj can show it. Dheeraj, if you have downloaded it, kindly share it. You go ahead, madam. Yeah, I think he will look it up.
Yes. So from Asa Mai, and that's the other important and I'll say indispensable aspect of Afghans' lives, Afghan Hindu life, I'll say, is their faith in Pir Ratan Nath. Pir Ratan Nath is like just, although I'm not an expert on Gorakhnath Shaiv tradition, so there are different, academically there are different, kind of opinions about the number of Siddha gurus in that tradition. So some say 5 or some say 9 even. So the very brief classification is there was Adinath, who is considered to be, I guess, the incarnation of Lord Shiva, and then, and kindly correct me if I'm wrong. So, because I'm really not an expert on the great Gorakhnath, the Nath Parampara. So that I really want to explore now as, in my upcoming project, because I'm fascinated by the way Afghans relate themselves with the Nath current. And that was very fascinating for me. So in the same way, Afghan Hindus talk about Asa Mai. So they will say Pir Ratan Nath ji, Kale Kamle Wali Baba. So as we learning in Nath Shav Parampara was there in Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan was separated just 70 years back in Afghanistan. In fact, the very interesting thing to note is that Pir Ratan Nath ji, because there are Adinath and Machendranath, and then Guru Gorakhnath, Balaknath ji, and Pir Ratan Nath ji. So the Pir Ratan Nath ji, he's also known as Harshri Nath ji. So most of the Afghan Hindus, they say Kale Kamle Wali Baba. Yes. Can you see this is expel? So when I went to okay, I think you have like this. I have not. Okay, this is from internet, I guess. Yeah, this is not that I sent. Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing this. So when I went there, there was they were celebrating Basant Panchami. When I went to Hicksville, I went there for 3-4 days. So that day they were celebrating Basant Panchami. They have invited me to talk because they didn't have time. Usually they just became free only after 7. So that's why I could not take pictures from outside of the temple because otherwise it's closed. So I needed someone to assist. So I could only talk to them in night, especially in evenings, which was practically night in December and January. So yeah, coming back to, so along with the Asa Mai ji, Harshri Nath ji is very important. Harshri Nath ji's shrine is there in Jhandewala. I think very close to that RSS office. So Harshri Nath ji's shrine is in Jhandewala. They call it Pir Ratan Nath ji or Kale Kamli Wali Baba because according to their faith, you have to go. You cannot wear black coats, and there also, I mean, the kind of devotion, to see the kind of devotion that Afghan Hindus have is fascinating because every second Monday, all the communities from Faridabad. So what they did that they hired buses. And they will, from Faridabad to come. Those who were living in Faridabad, of course, those lived in Tilaknagar, they will just, Jhandewala is not very far from Tilaknagar. So they will come for the whole day, and they will sing bhajans and kirtans, and and then they will have langars and make contributions and disseminate information. Plus, I find the newly arriving Afghan Hindu immigrants who got, who took shelter in Pir Ratan Nath ji's dargah. That's what they call. They call the dargah as Harshri Nath ji as Pir Ratan Nath ji, and Pir Ratan Nath ji is the dargah. That's what they say. So they were just, initially I couldn't recognize because they had to come to, they were just wearing tunics and pajamas like their fellow Muslim brothers, and they were keeping birds. So they said that it was necessary, it became indispensable to don that attire to be safe in Afghanistan. So when they came here, so what I observed that there was no community support from the side of our majority host, quote-unquote host community. There was no support from any political organization as well as any cultural organization based on my oral narratives, based on my interviews. There was no support. Nobody claimed that anyone supported them. But the Pir Ratan Nath ji shrine become very important in terms of providing shelter, and Asa Mai trust, Asa Mai temple is very important. And one more important aspect of Pir Ratan Nath ji is that the first shrine of Pir Ratan Nath ji is in Jalalabad. That's what they claim. Of course, because in Nath tradition, the claims that who is born where is also, there are somewhere conflicts that. But according to the Afghan Hindus claim, the first shrine of Pir Ratan Nath ji is in Jalalabad. That is very important for me to understand because I have a curiosity to explore and uncover the links that existed between Afghanistan and India, not only in terms of course, we know history that since Mahabharatas, and then there's a Ranjit Singh. Prior to Ranjit Singh, I mean, there was the Kashmiri ruler. I'm sorry, the name is not coming. Lalita Aditya, I guess.
Lalita Aditya.
Lalita Aditya ji. I think his kingdom was also extended there, and so so all that history we know, but to talk about in modern terms, even if we can establish the existing link, especially of Nath cult, and someone claiming that the shrine of Pir Ratan Nath ji was in Jalalabad, is very, very interesting to know, because we know that how this Nath tradition, the Gorakh Nath tradition, that chap tradition has helped Bharat to counter the then existing kind of so many suppression and contradictions. It has its own all the gurus, all the siddhas of these traditions, they have their own unique ways and teachings to claim identities, to assert identity, and to counter and contest the then existing suppressing forces. So in that sense, these two religious symbols, these two places, and these two, I will say, cult is not a justifying term, but let me just for an academic convenience, let me use this term, Asa Mai, if we can say academically, cult and Gorakh and Pir Ratan Nath ji cult is very important in terms of reconnecting the missing link. So when I started my research, and I was wondering, even until now, people ask me, are there Hindus and are there Sikhs in Afghanistan? So I think when I started from those questions, I have I'm really confident that we have so much to learn, even about own self, about our own civilization, about our own history through Afghans. That's what they say, that they really considered this, and I would love to, because it will take a lot of time, and it's these are 300 pages, 350 pages. So I would have loved maybe some other time, but what they said, that they have always considered Bharat to be the place of dharma, the bhumi of dharma. Although initially they felt cheated, but in the changed circumstances of CAA, which is, I guess, in my understanding, is a very delayed response, a very less that we have done, because people are still coming, we know. And I don't know, because technically I have still to read then what will happen to the children who are just 6 years old, so and who are so what happens to them, and what happens to the people, what will happen to the people who are coming after that caption of after the 2014, because there are so many people. I mean, I met people, I met I hate the term, to refugees, to them, to Afghan Hindu and Sikh population. And it is just, I guess, a long overdue, long due, as a civilizational duty, I guess, and as our cultural duty and recognition of our existing link that we had and that we shared with Afghanistan. So I think as of now, I would like to kind of just stop here, and I'd like to everyone to just ask questions, whatever they would like to. I might have missed so many points. I'm sorry, because I have digressed also. I'm realizing there's so much to tell, but I have tried my best not to be not to sound very theoretical, because sometimes I hate it, in our obsession to be theoretically justified, and that is still my kind of dilemma and my difficulty, that in order to justify ourselves and theoretically, we somehow miss the very basic factual and core questions, and that are important not only for that community but for our own existence. So धन्यवाद, और इसके बाद आप प्लीज अपने प्रश्न पूछें मुझसे.